Hey, thanks for watching another exciting episode of Lucious Showcase. I am Lucious T, and this week we're looking at a game that I've known about forever, and I've just recently picked up a copy, and now I'm gonna play it. So, let's not waste any time, let's check it out. Yes, I know. I'm filming this in January. I know. Shut up already. We're talking about ActRaiser on the Super Nintendo. Now, this is a game that I never had or played as a kid, didn't really know much about it, but it's a name that stuck in my head. I don't know why, but ActRaiser was always a game that when I heard about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a Super Nintendo game. No idea why. It's a game that came out in '91. It's one of the earlier releases for the Super Nintendo, and it's made by one of my favorite publishers on the system, Quintet, which is responsible for the criminally underrated Terranigma. So it's got a lot of things going for it. First and foremost, you pop that bad boy in and you hear the thing that everyone talks about when they talk about this game, which is the music. And that opening number is phenomenal. So awesome. Such a great... It's almost like hearing the Castlevania theme. Like, it gets you pumped. But that leads to my next point. It's nowhere else in the game. That's terrible. That song is excellent, and I thought it was prevalent in the whole thing, but it's really just in the first stage, and you can get past the first stage in a matter of minutes. And it's not like the whole game has one-off tracks. There's several songs in this game that repeat. All of the outworld and bass and upward, all the music's used again. The only song I can think of that isn't used twice is that song, which is the one everyone talks about, and then the snow level song, which I think that's even used twice. So I don't understand that decision, as well as that was very surprising, because every time I got into a level, I kept thinking like, is it gonna be back? It's not, which I think that's a mistake. So this is a game where you literally have two different play styles. You have a side-scrolling platform with, let's face it, stiff controls, weird hitbox, not the greatest mechanics, but paired to the other half of the gameplay, which is a sim-like God mode, where you more or less build up your town and slowly guide your citizens to build out, kind of SimCity-like, while simultaneously killing airborne enemies and then sealing off their lairs. This is where the majority of the gameplay happens, especially if you're thorough, because by increasing the size of your cities and population, you then gain levels for your actual character, which is the master, and then he gets more health points, as well as can get stuff like mana, which is a spell usage. He can also get spells, which I found 3 of them. I'm not sure if there's more, and so on and so forth. So really, the lion's share of the game, you're going to be in the top-down world, which, from what I hear, they removed that from ActRaiser 2, and I can definitely see why that's a huge mistake, because most of my enjoyment of this game came from those top-down areas. It's a slower pace, it helps you get a nice breath when you're going between the side-scrolling levels, because let's face it, the side-scrolling levels are not great. The enemies don't drop stuff when you kill them, so there's really no use or no need to kill them. You usually can get a full health right before you get to a boss, so I found myself just running through levels, taking damage whenever, didn't matter. As soon as you get to the boss, sometimes you can find full health, or if you die, generally it's generous enough with the lives that you'll start close enough to the boss so when you can then get to him. And that's where the spells come in very handy, because some of the bosses are a lot harder if you don't have them. I got the Starfall spell, and that essentially let me get all the way to the end of the gate. Much easier with those spells. And this is very clearly an early Super NES game, because Mode 7 is everywhere, and it works. It works very well. It's not one of those things where it's distracting from the game at all, but it is surprising because for an early Super Nintendo game, there's probably more Mode 7 in this than anything I can think of. Different environments are pretty cool. You have an island nation, you have a snow nation, you have a desert nation. In the top-down world is really where most of the enjoyment for me came from, because you got godlike abilities, you can dry up marshes, you can get rid of the desert, you can melt snow, you can even do an earthquake and make a landmass connect to each other, and then every once in a while your people will unexpectedly say, hey master, we want to do something, which that in itself is pretty funny. That yeah, after a while it's not unexpected. I expect after I seal a layer that something's gonna happen. After a while it got a little comedic where unexpectedly they're calling on you. Unexpectedly, oh my god, unexpectedly. Yeah, I'm expecting it. The translation in a whole is pretty solid, though on the very end credits it gets a little sloppy, which maybe it was sloppy the whole time, I just didn't notice. But as far as the game goes, it's one of those things where it's greater than the sum of its parts. If you just take the side-scrolling in and of itself, mediocre game, which ActRaiser 2. If you just take the sim-like, it's not nearly deep enough to hold your interest. But paired together, it's an extraordinary experience on the Super Nintendo that's very, very easily done in one sitting. Like most people told me, it's about 5 hours, which, yeah, that's about how long it takes, and it's perfect. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And you really, the final boss, kind of boss rush mode, is pretty challenging. It took me a little bit of time to get through it. Eventually I did get a strategy to knock out the bosses, and the last time that I killed them I was on 1 health, which this game does a lot. You'll find yourself on 1 health and you'll just barely do it, because the platforming, the jumping, the mechanics themselves, they don't really lend themselves to pinpoint performance, let's just say. I mean, the first boss, the guy who throws the axes, you can avoid all damage, but then it's going to take you 4 minutes to 5 minutes to kill him, because you're hitting him once, move, jump, once, move, jump, and you have to be perfect, versus you can just stand there and just take a few hits but batter him down, which is what I found the most effective strategy in the game, was just take a few hits, batter him down. But once again, very, very good game. It's not perfect. The controls aren't great. The jumping mechanic, while he does have perfect form while jumping, he points his toes, is a little stiff, but nothing I mean, it's an early Super Nintendo game. I can imagine getting this right after Super Mario World and being blown away, because it really is unique. It mixes SimCity with platforming, and they should have kept going with this. It's a shame that there isn't... I understand why people speak so highly of this, but where the hell is that opening music? Why isn't it in the rest of the game? And yeah, the side-scrolling levels are kind of dull. Overall, though, as far as the rating goes for this game, it's a solid 8.5. No knocking on it. It's not perfect. I don't think a lot of people that like the game would say it's perfect. But for me, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, 8.5. Pick it up and play it. That's your homework. And there you have it. Great game. Pick it up. Alright guys, well that's it for this week. We are fast approaching that March 3rd release date of the Nintendo Switch, which I cannot wait for. I actually took a whole week off from work between the 14th and the 20th for my birthday, so I'm thinking of maybe doing some streaming or doing more videos. What would you guys rather have? I could stream a lot of Breath of the Wild, or I can just crack down and get some videos done on my vacation. So let me know what you prefer. Once again, I do have a Patreon, so if you like having me do this, Retro Revolution, you sexy beast, you the man. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching another exciting episode of Little Mac. Little Mac.